We both knew that the temple would be a part of our lives, even as we were growing up and before we met each other.
But we both started wondering if we would be here in Philadelphia long enough to see a temple.
As a child, I'd watched my parents and helped them sell everything that we could sell. Whatever could be sold was sold for our passage to go to New Zealand. We lived in a wooden home, which was nicer than probably most homes in our village. And my dad started peeling off sides of the house to sell. So by the time we went to the temple in 1967, one side of the house was completely open. I suspect my father would have sold the entire, it would have just been 4 posts and a roof, but we had gotten enough to go to the temple.
So our closest temple in Washington, D.C., we tried initially to go once a month. That was our goal. And we thought, it's a pretty realistic goal. Let's try to do that. And we did for a good amount of time. And then admittedly, it slowed down a bit and life got in the way and all the reasons why we couldn't go every
Little
month.
League got in the way.
Yeah.
Soccer.
The kids got older and, we hardly had time to go to the grocery store. At that point, Philadelphia was the largest city in the country without a temple.
I think it was the largest city in the Western Hemisphere.
Without a temple.
Just let that process for a second.
All the while, though, we kept wondering, will we be here long enough? Or will we be able to participate in some way in getting a temple here?
So October 2008, I got a call from my stake president who asked me, he said, the church, they need a good number that they can reach Mayor Nutter. And I said to my stake president, as I'm his counselor, what for? He said, none of your business. I said, is this about a temple? He goes, that's beyond my pay grade, but they need a number. Just so happened that my son, my youngest son, Trey, had the mayor's number. He sends me the number. I called Mayor Nutter. I said, Mayor, this is Vai Sikahema. You should be aware that the church that I belong to, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, people at our headquarters are trying to reach out to you. I said, I don't know, and I don't have the authority to tell you why. I can only guess because there's not a temple in Philadelphia. And then the mayor's response was, we got temples here. There's Beth Shalom. I said, no, it's a temple of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And he says, oh, is this a big deal? I said, if that's what it is, it's a big deal, and they will want you to know that. And we're sitting there chatting, and all of a sudden his phone rings, and he turns his phone to me and he shows me the number. And he says, is this it? I said, yeah, I think so. So he says, hello, and then he gets up and walks away. And he comes back 10 minutes later and he says to me, yeah, they're about to announce tomorrow that there's going to be a temple in Philadelphia. This is a big deal, isn't it? I said, I just started crying. He goes, are you all right? I said, yeah, I'm okay, but this is huge. You have no idea how big this is. Then a couple years passed and no temple. The announcement was made in 2008, now it's 2010, 2011, nothing's happened. I get summoned to come to a meeting with the mayor and leaders of the church. I find out as we're sitting in the meeting that a city agency had been created to try to take the property back from the church. The meeting goes on and the mayor kept looking at his watch and it didn't seem to be going especially well. I had this impression that I should just tell the mayor what happened to you and your family. I said, Mayor Nutter, can I say something? And he said, sure, Vi, what would you like to share? I stood up and I said, Mayor, I just want to tell you that as a child, I was 5 years old, my family sold everything to go to New Zealand, to the temple. And I said, I don't know, and I don't think that any of your constituents will have to sell everything to come to this temple, but many of them will make significant sacrifices to come to the temple. And then I said, if I may be so bold, Mayor Nutter, if you approve this project, this will be the capstone of your career. And it will be a blessing to the people in Philadelphia, and it will be a blessing to you personally. I promise you that. And the mayor seemed quiet. And the moment I knew that things had gone well was he turned to Dean Davies and said, Mr. Davies, I feel impressed to ask you, given the setting and the reason why we're here, if you would offer a closing prayer. And I just cried. I just sat in my chair and wept. I bowed my head and just wept. And Dean Davies got up and blessed the mayor, and blessed the city of Philadelphia. He blessed the project would go forward. And that's how it ended. Then we parted ways, and I didn't know, what was going to come of it. But I think 3 or 4, 5 months later, it was announced that they were going to start digging dirt. And I honestly didn't feel like what I had to say had any impact. I didn't know what would compel the mayor to change his mind on this issue. And I think what impacted him was that he was moved upon by the Holy Ghost.
As many moving parts that were involved in getting the temple here, to know that we had just a little piece in one of those moving parts has such a special meaning. It has such a special meaning to us as a family that will never, ever go away, even after we leave Philadelphia.
If you've ever been in a setting where you've had dinner with a friend or be around family and you never want that day to end, we've all had those. Just imagine if the day never ends and you have the ability to be with that person, with that family, with that friend forever and ever and ever. That's the power of the temple, is that it provides and it creates eternal families and friendships. Those whom we love the most can be with us, and we with them for eternity.